We all know of an artist that has been touched by the grip of a mental illness. Beethoven, Van Gogh, Picasso, Robin Williams, Kurt Cobain, Lady Gaga, Sarah Crookall, and more recently, but tragically, Chris Cornell and Chester Bennington. This is no light matter, but it brings up an important debate. Is mental illness in some way linked to creativity? Hey creative cats! Through these creative conversations, we look at topics to help creatives like you make stuff that matters. This video is part of a series looking at creative debates throughout history, so if you're interested, keep an eye out and we'll move on up. It seems like there are endless examples of the stereotyped tortured artist. Some of those very artists agree with the label, like Lord Byron, who once said, "We of the craft are all crazy. Some are affected by gaiety, others by melancholy, but all are more or less touched." While there's others like Salvador Dali, who famously said, "There's one difference between the madman and me. I am not mad." He also said genius has to pass over madness. Despite any inconsistencies, folks are divided on this issue. But I want to know what you think. After this video is over, join the conversation and share your perspective in the comments below. Is creativity a side effect of being mentally unwell? Do you need to have a mental illness for creative projects? Mental illnesses cover a wide range of mental conditions that affect our mood, thoughts, and behavior, while creativity engages in imaginative, original, and unique ways of thinking. But many mental illnesses contribute to unique and different ways of thinking. The idea of the mad genius goes back as far as Aristotle, but studies looking at the link between creativity and mental illness specifically started around 1970. Studies at that time looked at writers to see if there was a link between creativity and mental illness, specifically psychosis. The study wasn't very conclusive, and some say that's because they only focused on writers. However, they did notice that those very writers had a higher rate of mood disorders, and that creative people did generally have traumatic pasts. Some criticized those early studies for having flawed methodologies that relied on anecdotal evidence. More recent studies found that people who were schizotypal, meaning people who shared characteristics with schizophrenics, had more activity in the right side of their prefrontal cortex, meaning they had overall more activity in both hemispheres. Experts suspect that that allows these individuals to make more novel connections faster, but these findings did not apply to actual schizophrenics. This connection made researchers look much closer at the relatives of those who had schizophrenia. After all, Albert Einstein had a son who had the illness, James Joyce's daughter was affected, and Bertrand Russell had many relatives with the illness. One piece of research looked at 1.2 million people and found that those in creative jobs weren't any more likely to have a mental illness, with the exception of bipolar disorder, which stood at about 8%. It did find evidence for first-degree relatives of schizophrenics in creative fields. That's again because of positive schizotypal traits, like openness, eccentricity, impulsivity, and the ability to treat things as new and interesting. This leads some to believe that there is a genetic link. Creative people in a recent study were found to have similar DNA sequences as those with bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. Unfortunately, creative people seek treatment much later than others for fear of losing their creative abilities. However, it's thought that treatment actually helps with creativity, especially when one faces the debilitating lows that make it really difficult to create anything in the first place. There are some things that prevent some experts from making too much of a link between creativity and mental illness. Mental illnesses are complex, and they do differ from person to person. As a reviewer in the British Journal of Psychiatry says, "By my reckoning, if it is possible to remove all bipolar disorder in the population, creativity would only be reduced by 0.24%. And a review paper by Charlotte Waddell notes, "We do more harm than good to the cause of alleviating mental illness and trivialize its impact by associating it with creativity." What do you think? Is it helpful to link creativity and mental illness together, or should they stay separated? Remember to share in the comments below. And whether you suffer from a mental illness illness or not, one thing is certain: creating is good for you. I personally live with post-traumatic stress, which affects everything from sleep to my ability to carry out daily tasks and the level of panic that I face. I've also experienced depression since I was a teenager, but found that art and creativity have been a great solace for me, as well as therapy. Now, I'm not an expert of any sort, but if you find that you have the need to talk to someone about whatever it is that you're going through, feel free to send me an email. My name is Sarah, and if you want to keep participating in these creative conversations, consider subscribing. And until next time, keep making stuff that matters.